We'll get rolling here. Well, thanks for joining us today. We're going to do this BFI, best first instruction. We're going to talk about real world problem scenarios, how to integrate problem-based learning into the classroom. My name's Elliot. I'll be one of the co-hosts today. I'm Senior Director of College Career Readiness at Generation Schools Network, and I'll pass it over to my associate, Amanda.
My name is Amanda Burns-Hawley, and I am the College and Career Readiness Pathways Coordinator. And thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for doing this.
Yeah, you get the one-on-one hosting. So what's great too is we can even if you'd like to go over any of the context we go over individually for your classroom, we can. Little background, where are you from? What school district are you from?
I am in Mancos, Colorado. And so it's a pretty small school district. It's like K-12 or pre-K-12, probably about 450 students. And I'm actually not in the classroom. I am the project-based learning director / instructional coach. So I'm taking this, I guess, in that capacity with that, kind of looking at that in that way.
Cool. I was in Cortez last week for 3 days with SWOs. I've done some work over there with them. So what we'd like to do to kick this off, so humor us, thank you. And don't worry, we won't steal your idea. Could you share a time you had $1 million idea that solved a problem, or do you want to describe a problem you have in your day-to-day life? Do you have either of those off the top of your head?
No, well, I don't have one of my own, but I'll give you the one that my son took to state science fair. Okay.
Wow.
He designed a automatic plant waterer that kind of you could program depending on how much water it needed, what kind of plant it was. I think like where the sun was, what time of year it was. Like he had all of these different variables that he programmed into his plant waterer.
Wow, cool. Amanda, do you have $1 million idea or a problem in your day-to-day life you'd need solved?
Well, I don't have any $1 million ideas yet, but I do have a day-to-day problem that I wish could definitely be solved, and that is how to make the school rider drop-off and pickup line more efficient and faster, because it is a disaster every single day. And I know I'm not the only parent who has that issue. I see it all the time from other people and on social media and stuff. How do we make those lines more efficient?
Mm-hmm.
That's a great one. When I was in 7th grade, I had this idea of a solar charged outlet. So you could like plug in a lamp hypothetically into this outlet that you could just walk around with. I can't really remember what I wanted that outlet for, but this was before, people had phones that had, 14 hours of charging battery and everything. So, you needed an outlet when you were going places. So that was my $1 million idea. It could also be $1,000 idea. Obviously, it's a $0 idea because it never came to fruition. But the reason why we like sharing these is because this is what project-based learning is, problem-based learning, right? It is identifying a problem, and the reason you come up with this idea is to solve it. And a lot of times when we think of project-based learning or problem-based learning, we get so inundated with kind of everything that can occur and go on when we lose kind of just the overall picture of just like, we're trying to solve a problem. We have this idea. Let's go forward and try to address it. All right, so what we're going over today is what are real world problem scenarios? Oh, sorry, Amanda. Actually, this is you.
Oh, that's okay. Yeah. So what are real world problem scenarios? What's the importance of them? And then how does one incorporate a real world problem scenario into the classroom, and then a model to kind of follow and execute them? All right, so what are real-world problem scenarios? So a real-world problem scenario is a teaching method in which complex real-world problems are used as the vehicle to promote student learning of concepts and principles, as opposed to direct presentation of facts and concepts. So really, it's kind of shifting your thinking or your teaching, I should say, from those level 1 and level 2 type of questions where you're just asking students to recall and recognize information, and moving towards like those level 3 and level 4 where you're asking students to apply and then be able to transfer their learning into a real world situation. So in a nutshell today, we're going to kind of describe a business coming into a classroom, presenting a problem that they're experiencing at their organization, and then students work through trying to solve that problem for them. And then GSN can assist schools with identifying a related business as well. So that's something that we can help with.
Yeah, welcome, Beatrice. So an example of what we're going to do today is talk about Adventure Colorado Tours. This is an organization that proposed a real-world problem scenario with Brush School District, and they worked on the problem for 6 weeks. Adventure Colorado Tours is an employer that does group hiking tours, overnight, private tours, and different camping adventures throughout the Rocky Mountains. And they came to GSN and wanted some help with marketing. They realized that with all of the tours that they were doing, that a lot of young people were excited, and they were like, okay, we got to find a way to be able to market to young people, because young people may help drive some of our sales in tourism. We want them to be aware of the different opportunities in Colorado rather than just marketing towards parents. So they worked with Brush High School and talked to them about their current marketing plan, and the Brush students helped them design some TikTok videos and Instagram reels and other types of content that then they could then use on their marketing platform. So the problem that Adventure Colorado Tour had was their overall marketing plan. It wasn't reaching the audiences they wanted it to. So the students went through, diagnosed the problem. That was the overall project. To adopt it into the classroom, it was done in a business elective class where students would spend anywhere from 45 to 50 minutes a day working on this project. And they have a 4-day school week, so it's Monday through Thursday. And then the outcome was they actually helped develop some of the videos and marketing materials that were then put out on Adventure Colorado Tour's social media pages. And then after they completed the work that they did, Tyler's come back. I believe he came back this year and worked with some of the students and then shared some of the analytics of some of the posts they made and impact they made on his business. So that was pretty cool. And that's just an example of one of the real world problem scenarios that a teacher could do.
All right, so I just want you to take a second to kind of reflect on this quote by John Hattie, which you may already be familiar with. But it says, you cannot use deeper thinking skills unless you have something to think about. So kind of as you're digesting that, we'd like for you to share the opportunities that students currently have to practice and master deeper thinking skills at your school over a year's time. And then from those skills, which ones do you feel students have the greatest opportunity to develop? So if you could just take a minute to kind of brainstorm and share any of those skills, that would be great. One that I can think of right off the bat would be a communication skills. I know that's one that is hit pretty heavy, whether it's public speaking, getting up in front of the class and presenting a project. So there's one to kind of kick it off.
Like collaboration, I think is like a big one that is really tricky, I think, for teachers sometimes, because it, requires so much more kind of classroom management, but it is so fundamental. I mean, like the fact that you two are here today, like you had to do some level of collaboration to figure out how you were going to present this. And I don't even know if you guys are in the same building or same city. So, it's a pretty important skill.
Yes, definitely. Thank you for sharing.
Mm-hmm.
Is there one that you think that you guys tend to target the most? Maybe one that I don't want to say is redundant, but one that maybe your students have mastered a bit more because you are hitting that one so often?
Well, we have what we call like our portrait of a graduate competencies, which are basically skills. And one of them is like, having I think we don't call it growth mindset because we were trying to avoid that particular word. What do we call it? But it's basically growth mindset. Um, and so I'd like to think that it has been hit so often that they're proficient at it, but I don't know if that's really the case.
Gotcha. Well, thanks for sharing. The great thing about real world problem scenarios is that students have the opportunity to hit a plethora of skills. And with any of the scenarios that are thrown at them, a lot of times when these businesses come in, students are working within teams. And so you talked about the collaboration piece. That's something that real world problem scenario could address, with any type of problem that's thrown their way. So that's really what we like about real world problem scenarios, that students have the opportunity to practice so many different skills that are transferable outside of the classroom as well. We can go
Yeah,
on to
I
the
think that.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I think those are the, like the 4C, communication, collaboration, critical thinking, creativity, like those are all of those, same sort of like soft skills, 21st century skills that you can't really assess, but, they get embedded in these kinds of projects.
Absolutely. Yep. Nail on the head. Absolutely.
Well, you can assess them. Actually, if you're interested with Generation Schools Network, we have some assessments and some rubrics that we could talk to you all about with Mega School District. I know we have a good relationship with you all. If you're interested, we could have a subsequent conversation about what that looks like.
I would love to see that.
Awesome.
All right. Amanda will follow up with you after and we'll set up a time and we'll chat.
Okay.
Yep. Definitely.
Okay.
Whoops. It's not, whoops. Sometimes I get excited on these. All right. Oh, Amanda, one more for you.
Oh yeah, so the importance, which you kind of already chatted about a bit, but it promotes the development of critical thinking, problem solving, communication skills, plus a plethora of others. Exposes students to real world learning applications and careers that they weren't already aware of. Engages them in real work, elevating their value to the community, and then teachers experience more engagement due to the relevant links to life. So
there we go. All right. So we have some steps for the best real world problem scenario execution. And you can write these down. Don't worry, these will be up on the slides. We'll share the slides out after as well. You can screenshot it if you want, write it down. It's all good. Yeah. Whatever works best for you. So we're going to go through these steps and then we're going to break them down. So the 6 steps we recommend for real world problem scenarios and the best execution is, well, first, the problem has to be presented. So after an employer comes to the classroom, or whoever, could even be a teacher, could be a community member, they present the problem to the classroom. Then in the classroom, students will then work to define the problem as a class. So the teacher will help lead this. What is this problem? A lot of times it is deeper than what it is that the individual says that it is, right? Any problem that we have in life, like if I say my foot's hurting, that's deeper, right? Because obviously my foot may hurt, but there are some other circumstances much deeper than that as to why it's hurting, right? Maybe it's because I stubbed it earlier. Maybe it's because I have some foot problem. Maybe it's some hereditary issue. Maybe it's my diet. Who knows what it is, right? But first thing we want to do is define that problem, concretely understand and define what the problem is, and then you want to explore it. So have students understand what exactly is this problem? What other populations does it affect? Why is it affecting this individual right here? Are there any other systems at play that are influencing this problem? And then after you go through and explore the problem, we recommend having students understanding the constraints present. So when you think about this problem, how much money is the company willing to put in to solve this problem? That's an important one. What resources are available to use to solve this problem, right? Like what is at your disposal now that you understand this problem? What are the constraints that sit around this problem? Because for example, someone could go, oh, we should easily be able to solve world hunger. It's like, well, okay, well, there are some constraints to solving world hunger, right? We have a combination of like money and time, right? Like we don't have, and then human capital. We don't have enough money to move the resources there. We don't have enough time to get the people over there. And we don't have enough people in general to help, eliminate um, the lack of food in the world. However, though, it could happen if if those constraints were removed. So that's something you want to talk to students about. Because a lot of times they'll go, oh, super easy, silver bullet right here. It's like unlimited money. It's like, okay, teleportation machine. Once again, no, can't do those. So after we really define the problem, and that's where you can tell we're really big on defining that problem, understanding what it is, then you move into brainstorming solutions. So this is students' favorite part, and they'll probably start this right after hearing the problem. So this one isn't really too much of an issue. They'll start just throwing stuff up against the wall, and that's great. You can put students into groups of 4, groups of 3, and then they'll start brainstorming different solutions. After they compile a list of solutions, then what you want them to do is take a list or look at the list of their solutions, and they can rank order them based off which ones they think are best. And for those, maybe the top 2, top 3, have them work on strengthening those solutions. So how can you take that idea you just came up with? Typically, they're half baked with students, so we're going to put them through the oven. We're going to try to bake them a little bit. Not overly bake them, though. So we're going to conduct some research, and that can just be done online, right? You can do primary research, secondary research. You can even have them just look at like general articles on the internet. It really just depends on what the problem is, because some problems you'll realize like, okay, you can use some academic literature to support it, and there's other ones where it's like there hasn't been enough research ever done in the world to be able to actually get any type of primary research. And then if it's applicable, students can then test their solution on a sample population. Then this one's a great one we love right here is have students identify gaps to their own solutions, have them play devil's advocate. A lot of times students' ideas, they're perfect and they're the silver bullet. There's nothing could possibly ever go wrong with this one. So it's a good one for students to get a well-rounded understanding of their solution, what works and what doesn't. And to your point earlier, how are we integrating soft skills, durable skills, North Star skills, portrait of a graduate? And then they can also interview some users of the product or service that are experiencing this problem and see like, hey, would this type of solution support that? And then also, if there is a financial component, add a little bit of math, have them calculate the financial viability, right? If each one of the units they're trying to create costs $50 and there's 1,000 people that are affected by this, that means they would need $50,000. Is that in the budget? After they go through these 5 steps, what they'll do is we typically recommend they put together like a slideshow presentation or something of that manner, and then they can present or test if they built something, present or test the solution back to the audience that was impacted by the problem. That's typically the employer that presented it in the first place. So they can come back in person via Zoom. The student group then will have a presentation where they kind of describe this iterative process they went to, how they came up with the solution, and why they think it's the best. Does this make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have an entrepreneur class that uses some specific curriculum, and I cannot remember what is it, incubator. And I think it's similar to this, although students are doing sort of coming up with their own business and then going through some of this process.
Cool.
I like that this is more about like what an outside entity is looking for, and then students are helping solve that. And I think it does kind of cross, it does have some project-based learning components to it. So I'm just like brainstorming, like where would this, who in my district would, really want to jump off with this.
Yeah, and there is a lot of parallels to entrepreneurship. And to your point, the biggest part is that social capital students will develop from an external community member. And that's really all it is. And it's not a huge burden on the community member either, because all you really need is just 30 minutes in a class. Hey, come on in, present your problem. Students will work on it. They might come up with something you've never thought of before. Hey, it might be some value. It might not. Students may just come up with some stuff you've already thought of, but it's kind of a fun way to engage with the community. Also, maybe get, some pro bono consulting from your local high school students. And like one thing that we've always talked to districts about is like, oh, we don't know any employers that would want to do this. It's like, okay, I'm sure, number one, I'm sure actually you could if you thought about it. But secondly, think about some of the employers in your region that may actually want some intel from local high school students. Like if high school students are like the consumer or user of their products or services, my guess is they would probably love to ask some questions to them about like how they think and interact with different things.
Yeah, there's like a coffee shop that's like a half a block away from us.
Mhm.
And I'm imagining them coming in like, our problem is that just like the way that they do credit is it's kind of a mess. And I
Okay.
was imagining like the students brainstorming ways that they could do credit better or like yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that is a perfect example. And one thing that's cool too is we're going to go over this next is you can apply this framework to any class. It doesn't have to be an elective. We've done it with every single subject matter. So we're going to go over exploring the problem here. Just, oh, go ahead, Amanda. I see you coming off mute.
Oh no, you're good. Keep going.
Just getting ready. Just getting
Yep.
ready. All right. Getting ready. Cool. Yeah, so I'll pass it over to Amanda, and then she's going to describe what we're going to do next.
Yeah. So, what we're going to have you do to show that this is applicable just in your everyday learning, your everyday instruction, and what you're required to teach in your content area. We'll have you identify your subject matter, and then on the next slide, we're going to show you a series of real world problem scenarios for each of these particular content areas, and then we'll read the prompt, and then we'll pull up these standards here. We'll throw the link in the chat, and we would like for you to identify 1 to 3 standards that align with that particular scenario, if that makes sense.
So before you get started, because of my position, I'm kind of like all of it. My own personal background, teaching background is in English, but that's often like the easiest to come up with. So I'm going to challenge myself. I'm going to do math, and that's like the hardest thing for me. It's the thing I don't know as well. So
Cool, I like it.
Nice. And we'll read them all, so this may help jog your memory a little bit. And if it's okay, each of us will read one. Get a little interactivity going here. So cool. So we'll let you read the math one then. And how do you pronounce your name? I apologize. I didn't get that earlier.
let's say Audion.
Adion. Okay.
Love it.
All right. So I'll take number 1, and then Amanda number 2, and then Adion, you want to take, we'll give you 3 and 4. We're double dipping you here. Is that too much to ask?
That's good.
Okay. And then I'll bring it home with multidisciplinary, can't talk, to bring us home. All right. So social studies related. So here's an example of a social studies related real world problem scenario. Food security. Students must research the history of food security issues throughout the world and identify 3 other nations that proactively address food insecurity. What do these other nations do to alleviate food insecurity? What could be done locally to alleviate food insecurity in your community? We worked with a group that brought in their local food bank in Weld County, Colorado. So really easy one you can do there. All right, Amanda?
Okay, so the science one. The problem: you must build your own urban farm because of a zombie apocalypse. Students must research how to build a farm on a half acre that is producing within a few months. They must decide how to create raised garden beds, how to organize irrigation, what soil to use, what plants they'll plant, and much more.
English related. Business needs help with social media marketing. Students will design and write I'm assuming this says marketing plan.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's just like where the pictures are.
Yeah.
A business in need of social media marketing. They will research its industry, target audience, competition,
Mhm.
and more to build out this plan. At the end of the plan, they will create a concise executive summary. Math related, business needs help projecting their financial projections for the 2022-23 fiscal year. Students will gather previous annual reports and create financial projections based off of predicted sales, expenses, new business avenues, and other items. Students will then present their financial projections to the business.
Yep. And then on the multidisciplinary related one is a medical business needs help surveying local community members to understand their customer profile and what services people need. Students will then write a detailed report on their findings. Students can use math, science, did that out of order, English, and potentially history related subject matters to tackle this problem. So yeah, you can do these in any context, which is nice. And for math, a really easy one is anything involving like construction, engineering, and then anything involving like finance.
Mhm.
All right. So you want to choose the math standard for this? We'll do a little math standard action.
Okay.
Cool. And then what we'll do is since we're all here, oh, there we go. Amanda tossed it into the chat. I'll go ahead and click on this here. We just want to show how easy it is to align these things. And you're probably already familiar with that, but for the sake of the recording, we're gonna push on here. So we're gonna go through high school. And then which standard category do you want to click? Is there anyone in particular you're drawn towards?
Do geometry.
All right. So for geometry, that one may be a little bit more difficult for the one that we
Yeah.
had. That one would be more data and statistics. Hence why I hovered over that one. But that's okay.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
you
Go.
know
You can
the
go back to
magicians
that
do
one.
that. No, it's okay. The magicians lead. They try to lead. That's
Mhm.
I was like anything but geometry. She's like geometry. No, it's okay. We can look at geometry. And that's where I was saying, like anything involving construction or any type of engineering, geometry works great.
Mhm.
But let's see if we can get lucky here. I don't know if we'll get lucky here. But we'll see if we can get anything. That's pretty algebraic what we were looking
Yeah.
at. Maybe not, but
Yeah. Okay. No, go back. Go
that's
back.
okay.
I was
All
just
right, we're
trying to
going back.
think
We're
of
going back.
like what my math teacher, was like, okay, I need something for this. And
For sure. And that's where like, the construction, the engineering, anything like that, if that copy place is thinking of designing a new room for students to hang out in, um, really easy. But right here we can get into some data. Um, so a lot of these you can look at, for example, interpreting categorical and quantitative data, summarize, represent, and interpret data on a single count or measurement variable. For the single count, pretty easy. You're getting descriptive statistics from any type of accounting data. So that's pretty easy, right? If you're bringing in accounting, math, that's pretty simple quantitative data that you can go through and categorize. And then hypothetically, if you're forecasting, you're going to use probability to make decisions. So you're going to calculate expected values and use them to solve problems. Then same thing here, using probability to make decisions, use probability to evaluate outcomes of decisions. So we just wanted to show you that it's pretty easy. And like we could click on any of these. We go into the algebra one, I guarantee we could find 2 or 3. So it just goes to show, real world problem scenarios can be implemented in a wide variety of classrooms. You just have to look a little bit into the state standards and then go from there. Right. Oh, and if you want to get fancy, you can also tie them to some ASCA standards as well if you want to bring in some counselor association. Don't know how fancy you wanted to get. All right. Now what we're going to do is we're going to do an example together. We're going to go through strengthening the solution. So we just went through exploring the problem a little bit, kind of like thinking about it and then going, all right, well, how do we apply this to some academic standards? Now we're going to go through strengthening the solution. So we have a little problem for you, and we're going to go ahead and talk through it. All right,
Okay.
Amanda.
So we're going to use the hot topic of the TikTok ban, which I'm sure you're familiar with here in the US. So I'll read the scenario to you. It says, imagine you were just hired as a consultant for a group of disgruntled teens. They scrounged together $20 to hire you for your expertise. These disgruntled teens love to watch TikTok videos. Recently, they read that the Senate may pass a bill that will ban TikTok from being used. Your clients are TikTok-loving teens and are concerned about this. This is your real-world problem scenario. What should these students do if TikTok gets banned? So you can imagine that Elliot and I are the teenagers paying you $20 for your expertise to come up with a solution for us should TikTok get banned. So just thinking back through those steps that Elliot kind of outlined, obviously this will be a much more condensed format, but defining the problem, which we've kind of already done for you, and then exploring it, understanding any constraints that it has, brainstorming those solutions, obviously strengthening it, and then presenting it. So this will be much more condensed, like I said. But any solutions that you could think of for us disgruntled teens?
Gosh, with only $20?
That we scrounged it. That means high and low.
You guys, yes.
Sofa.
Okay, first of all, get better paying jobs. No,
You're an expensive consultant, so we get you for 5 minutes.
Okay. Now I need to clarify if TikTok gets banned, are Elliot and Amanda, are you guys are you expecting TikTok to be banned and you're looking for other outlets, or are you looking for ways to keep TikTok from being banned?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
What do you think? We're expecting it to get banned and we're looking for other outlets? That's what I'm
I
going to
think,
go.
yeah, I think instead it was going after the policy issues. Because even though if you'd love to do some legal support for $20, we can we can just go with the alternative, and we'll just go with yes. If TikTok gets, and this is
Okay.
good because this is where exploring the problem comes in. This is where students have to like get clarity.
Mhm.
So this is perfect.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
we're thinking, yeah, it gets banned. We're upset, but what can we possibly do?
okay. I suggest that you uh move to Instagram Reels or whatever they're called. I don't know.
Okay. All right. All right. All
I
right. We
don't
like that.
recommend I don't recommend Facebook. You guys are too young for that.
Teenagers won't do Facebook.
They will not
Smart.
do Facebook. Yeah.
Smart. Smart. Well, there you go, right? That's kind of
Mhm.
more or less how it is, and you may come up with a list of solutions and then figure out different ways to propose it and like bring up some data. You're like, oh, you'll like Instagram Reels because based off some research, a lot of other Gen Zs are also on Instagram, so your friends will probably migrate there. If you go on Facebook, you might, to your point, run into you might have some whatever Facebook's version is called, but it may be some older folks on there. To your point, it may not be as relevant to teenagers. So, um, yeah, that's great. That's how
Great.
simple it is. Right there, we're done. We're done. And hypothetically, with a student and a classroom, you can take a lot more time diagnosing this, right? And I think the research component is really what adds kind of that extra level that enables these types of things to go on for weeks on end like they have. Because when you really explore that problem, right, you'll have students explore, hey, what's the policy regarding TikTok? When is this going to happen? How many Generation Z students use TikTok? What are their current alternatives? Within those alternatives, which is the best fit for them based off of who they are? And the only information we have is that they're teenagers. Um, and then that's where, to your point, okay, Instagram Reels seems great. And then if you were to give a presentation like back to us after, let's say, a couple weeks, you could even show us, you could grab your phone and go, this is what an Instagram Reel looks like. Here's an example. We made one just to show you how cool it can be. You also got Facebook and Snapchat has their own, YouTube Shorts, but we do think Instagram is by far the strongest one based off of our, calculated research. We even interviewed some other students that were teenagers, and they also said, yeah, Instagram Reels is where I'm going. So,
So um there's going to be sort of like a iterative process here, like there's information that comes up and then questions that are going to be asked based on that information, and it's like just a cycle of inquiry.
yep, the cycle of inquiry, and that's where the teacher has to be the facilitator of that.
Mhm.
So the educator will be the one facilitating, yeah, this feedback loop of information that as new information is uncovered, then yeah, you go through the feedback loop again and then go back again. And then one thing you can even have students do before they present to the employers, they can present to each other as a class, and students are much more willing to pick apart each other's ideas than their own. So that's also a great opportunity for them to go, oh, well, Instagram Reels, that one is shut down on our school Wi-Fi. They go, you gotta go to YouTube Shorts because you can get on it if you use this proxy website, and it's like, oh, never thought of that. Right. And obviously we don't need kids scheming against the school district's Wi-Fi. By no means are Amanda and or I endorsing that. But that's just where you are able to get, to your point, this feedback loop and this iterative process, which is nice. And that's where it can take a good amount of time because every time new information is uncovered, or you learn something new, or the employer brings forward some additional information, you can go back through the entire process again. And that's good for students to learn.
Yeah, and I also think too, it's an opportunity for students to do some reciprocal teaching and like Elliot said, be able to give each other some feedback and kind of assess themselves in a formative way. And it takes a little bit of pressure off of the teacher as well. So that way you can go around and observe and do your own formative assessment on your own without actually having to be in the mix of it, and just kind of let students kind of take ownership of their learning and have a little bit of an agency over what they're doing. And then again, all of those skills are falling into place. You've got your collaboration, your teamwork, communication, all of those things are happening and going on at the same time. So
We'll move on to what's next. Unless, do you have any other questions about the TikTok related real world problem scenario?
Do you have questions about TikTok specifically? No.
No. If you do, we probably can't answer it, but you're welcome to toss them out there. Cool. Yeah. So based off, looked like you were taking some notes. How do you think this type of activity would be beneficial to students learning?
Well, I mean, I think for all of the reasons, like, I'm definitely seeing the similarities, but also some of the differences between this and project-based learning. Like a problem-based learning activity can become sort of a project-based, depending on like what, how that gets shared and with who it gets shared. I mean, maybe they're just really exactly the same. I think what I definitely see all of the benefits for students. I think where I am having, like, just in my position where I'm having struggles is, I think back to what you initially said about this shift from level 1, level 2 types of questions with the recall and the just recognizing information, especially at like the younger levels, like in elementary. Like, I think that students are capable of doing these things and even get a lot of engagement and excitement and, just makes them interested in learning. But sometimes teachers are so set in just like that recall kinds of information, and it's hard to get them out of that kind of thinking. And my response often to that is just like, students, just because you're teaching something doesn't mean students are learning it. And you've got to create those ways that make them want to learn this information, like give them a purpose for learning it other than just passing the minute test or whatever. So I guess in answer to that question, it's so beneficial to students. I've just got to figure out how to show that to teachers as well.
That is one of the more difficult ones that we definitely hear, is a lot of it depends on the type of teacher they are and how flexible they are with their teaching style. Because to your point, there are those that are in the lecture regurgitate approach, and that is kind of the loop of what they do: lecture, regurgitate, move on to the next one. So we have noticed a little more hesitancy with those types of educators. So if that's more of like a district shift, mindset shift of those teachers, yeah, that's one that takes a little more time. And maybe it's even just having another teacher at the school do it and then have that individual observe and see the benefits of it. Because it takes time. And as you're aware, if one of those individuals tries it and they're already going in with a negative attitude, they'll probably try it for a day and go, this doesn't work. Elliot said the academic standards are all this. No way that guy
But
took.
well, I mean, to that point, I also think that presenting it, this way, I can see where this, it's like a really slight change in the approach could be something that certain teachers might grab onto.
Yeah, definitely. And that's where like we do like to have the formulaic approach. So it does kind of offer that standardization of like, hey, this is how you can go about it, which does add a sense of comfort. Because those teachers are typically very structured.
Yeah.
And I think it's also kind of shifting the mindset too of some of those teachers who are kind of set in their ways, or they've got those built-in structures that they're not willing to teeter from. Just reminding them that the goal is at least I think for the most part, is student-centered learning. And so the learning should be about the student and, and how they're going to be able to make this applicable, after high school, and post-secondary life. And so I think that's just something that we have to continue to stress as educators to our counterparts, that, the student should be the center of it, and being able to help them learn and retain information and be able to apply it and transfer it in the real world is what's most important. So that's just my 2 cents as a former educator, and kind of where my mind goes to it to try to help, cause that shift to happen. So
Let's just saying it again and again.
Yep,
Sometimes.
yeah, it's not easy. I know it's not an easy task. I understand.
All right. Sorry, I don't know what happened with the pausing share there. So it's still not working. Because it's coming up as paused on your side, right?
It says has started screen sharing.
Weird. Maybe what happened to you is happening to me now, Amanda.
Yeah, I don't know. Zoom has been a little bit weird, so
Bizarre. Well, luckily we don't have much left.
I was gonna say that I think that was
I think that's pretty much it. Let me go back to my slides real quick. Actually, you know what? I think I may have solved it. Real world problem scenarios don't only happen in the classroom. Sometimes they happen on Zoom calls, and we're always prepared at Generation Schools Network to live it,
Yep.
it. So that's actually what that was. That was a representation of us living through it.
there you go.
That's everything though. Great culmination. We'll send out this slideshow to folks. Here is my email, and there is Amanda as well. And we really appreciate Adion.
Audion.
Audion. Oh, sorry, Audion.
Oh, it's okay.
Audion, appreciate for you showing up and attending, and also everyone else watching remotely.